Okay, well, welcome. My name is Hamza. I'm with the Small Giants community, and I have two of my colleagues, Annie and Bridget, on the screen as well. And we are really excited to have you here. If you are new to the Small Giants community, welcome. We are a conversational and a casual bunch, and this is going to be a really fun hour, so we'll get to learn a lot. And we also would love to hear from you. So you can certainly submit questions through the chat feature, anything you're thinking about, anything that's top of mind for you. A bunch of you also submitted questions as part of the registration, and we're really thankful for that. And we will get through those questions or try to get through as many of them as we can during this hour. We do have a couple of announcements on the Small Giants community side. We are getting ready for our annual conference that will take place in Detroit, May 2nd to 4th, 2023. And we are hard at work in preparing and planning for that. My colleagues will drop a link there for more information on the summit. The theme is transitions, and it's a wonderful couple of days. So if you've never experienced that, we would love to see you there. Programming and lots of information will be available through the link. Also, we are preparing for our 2023 content and thought leadership. And so if you have any ideas, what's top of mind for you in business, maybe what you're struggling with, maybe opportunities, we would also love to hear from you. We're creating all the content for 23, and that shows up in the form of blogs and virtual events like this, and our podcast and our ebooks. So we love to involve our friends and members of the community, and we love to collaborate together. So if you have any recommendations or suggestions or what's top of mind for you, please feel free to share that with us. And you can always do that at hello@smallgiants.org. Okay, so with that, I am very excited to introduce our panelists. We're going to take about 10 minutes each with each of them to learn a little bit about them and their programming, and they're going to share about their organizations as well. And then after that, we'll switch over, and my colleague Annie will take over, and we'll go through the questions that you've submitted. And again, any other ones that you'd like to share today with us via the chat, or you can also raise your hand. We'd love to hear from you. So with that, I'm going to start off with Jennifer Trachtenberg. She is the Senior Talent Leader of Clear Vision Optical. And then we'll hear from Missy Light, who is the Training and Development Facilitator of Pegasus Logistics Group. And then we'll talk to Doug Keeger, who's the co-founder and Chief Learning Solutions Officer at Vivaic. So Jennifer, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much. Nice to meet you. Nice to see everybody. It's great to be surrounded by so many friends. We have a bunch of Clear Vision people representing, so you'll notice us from our colorful backgrounds where we're always in theme. So great to see everyone. I'm Jen. I oversee talent management, which is what we call human resources. I've been with Clear Vision just 13 years this week. I think about my responsibilities in 3 key buckets, which is really the people of the organization, the culture, how we treat one another, what it feels like to be an employee of the company, and the philanthropy. Over the last so many years, I've taken on a larger emphasis, which really focuses on team development, leadership development. And over the last year, I've been working to really put some more energy and emphasis around our larger operations. So we are a designer and distributor of eyewear, glasses and sunglasses. We distribute nationally as well as internationally. We're a business-to-business organization, and we have a very rich heritage. So over 70 years, it's a second-generation family-owned business. And in doing so, we have just under 200 employees working for us all over. Since COVID, we've become a work from anywhere company, and we truly are everywhere. So that's just a little bit. Hamza, do you want me to continue, or you want to introduce the others?
No, please continue, and you can jump into programming if you're ready. Yep.
Okay, great. So I know today we're talking a bit about career development and some of the cool things that we've been up to. One of the things that I think I'm most proud of is definitely the development and creation of a student internship program. So when I joined the organization, sort of the thread throughout my career has been the idea of taking really talented students and helping them to make that bridge between academic and professional. I one day many years ago was an intern myself in a different organization, and I felt so very fortunate to have been given the opportunity to really learn, be given real responsibility, have the opportunity for mentorship. And so that was something that I really wanted to develop and create in other organizations. And I've been very fortunate. So we did start the program when I joined the company. Before that, it was really more of a friends and family variety. Since then, we've hired several hundred students, many of which have been focused, our business is domiciled in New York on Long Island. So initially, prior to COVID, we were very much building oriented. So many of the students have been from local universities, and we're very, very rich with schools that are near to us. And the premise really initially started out as, let's get some really smart individuals who come into the company with lots of energy and good ideas and exposure to technology, and let's see what happens. But the reality is, over time, it's really become one of our secret weapons and our true pipeline to talent development. So we've brought in people from all different disciplines. They literally span the gamut from engineering to accountancy to operational expertise to two members who are on the call today who share with me a love of organizational development and talent management. So, you know, over time, we've been able to welcome them into our company because truthfully, an internship is the longest interview ever. And you get to try before you buy, and you get to really groom and mold and shape talent. And what's been part of the real recipe for success is that the leadership team has been so invested in helping them to really grab roots and get seasoned and have opportunity. And so as a result of that, we've launched some of our very best opportunities, projects, and initiatives through their involvement. So anything and everything from the fact that we moved into 3D printing for our rapid prototyping actually started with an intern. We have launched certain brands, sometimes in secret, with some student interns. We developed certain technology for our warehouse through interns, and so on and so forth. And right now, we're actually in the process of developing 3D printed eyewear, and we're super excited and energized around that. And we actually have two students, one who's an industrial engineer and one who's a mechanical engineer, who are working behind the scenes with us to make that happen. So some remarkable things have come of that type of a program. And they really do just bring an immense sense of energy and optimism. Another success has been that we actually have had at least two individuals who left us at the end of the internship program, and then almost 10 years later came back to us. So they grabbed, you know, other experience and other life endeavors, and they realized that, you know, that Clear Vision was a home. And so they bring to us some of the cool things that they've learned, but then they're able to really continue to grow and grow their professional career with a culture that they feel really aligns with their values. And so that's been, you know, very inspiring and exciting, and, you know, and something that we're very proud of. I would just say, you know, the last thing on summary is our program is hinged on the belief that it's not just about the day-to-day work, but it is about the crafting of development. So we do actually have several trainings that we've designed over time that we accompany to it. So we do a course that we developed called Book Bags to Briefcases, which really is that idea of how do we make that big leap from academic to professional? How do we teach the things that are sometimes unspoken, but that are so helpful to being able to be successful in a professional arena? A build your personal brand class, which is, you know, what does your online presence look like? How do you really create the persona that you want to be known for? And, you know, different ways that we've been able to guide and support them in their ongoing development. And then oftentimes when they get hired, it ends up evolving into additional career development to help them as they become an emerging professional. So a little bit of backgrounds on some of the cool things we've been up to lately.
Awesome. That's wonderful. Thank you, Jen. A quick question, because you said some, in some cases, a couple have left. For those that stay on, is there an interview process and an onboarding process, or are they really just staying on and sort of continuing to develop in your organization?
So there, generally speaking, isn't another interview step, but what we have found is we really need to be very clear on what the next set of responsibilities look like and or what the bigger mission is, because you don't want that person to stay in the same seat. And then it's hard to start to think about them as no longer the intern, but as, now they are the fill in the blank. So it's really important to have a vision of where that role goes to. And as a company that's, we would say mid-sized, but not huge, even in sometimes if we love somebody, we have to make sure there's really a business need and an opportunity for them. So it's, it's both ways to make sure that there's logic to bringing that person on board, not just that we really like you, but we don't have a home for you, or that, we have a home, but you're not exactly the right fit. So it has to be a shared commitment. There has to be, a logic to doing it. But when you do it, it really is amazing. And what we have found, which I also think is a little unusual, and I'll be interested to hear from the other speakers. So we actually have found that sometimes you interview or you intern in one area, but we actually notice that you're either able to make the leap to a different area because the skills are complementary or that's where the need is. And sometimes you interview for one position, but you actually realize, having interns with us, that may not be your calling, but there's something else out there that you didn't even know existed. So your parents may tell you should be an accountant when you grow up, but then you enter in accounting and maybe that's not your calling, and you end up realizing, but actually you can apply that insight into doing, sales and data reporting. And so those success stories of being able to cross-fertilize and give people holistic experience is really kind of part of the hallmark of the program.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And we'll come back to Jen. So if you have questions, please jot them down. And also you can submit them through the chat feature and we'll get to them in a bit. Missy, how are you?
Hi guys, thank you so much for coming today. I might be like a shot of espresso, so there's gonna be probably a lot of energy coming at you from me.
Yay, good for that.
It's a good thing. So my name is Missy Light. I am in training and development for Pegasus Logistics. If you don't know really what Pegasus Logistics is, that's okay. We're a mid-sized organization. We've got about 430 employees right now and growing. So every day that number kind of changes on us. But we are a privately owned, non-asset based 3PL logistics company. And what we focus and what we specialize in is more on the very timely, time sensitive, really critical logistics services, both on the domestic side and also on the international side. So we help really move important things that matter all over the US. We like to find just the customers that are really in need of assistance and want more of a solutions driven assistance when it comes to their logistics services. I've been with the organization for 3 years, working within training and development. And I also recently have taken on some extra roles and responsibilities in supporting one of our executives on our operations side. So it's been fun. It's great. Every day is a new day. But what I come here to talk to you about today is something that we do here at Pegasus called our individual development plans. So this is something that we complete on an annual basis. We refer to them as IDPs. So IDPs or individual development plans are the same thing. So normally we kick these off in the beginning of the year. So great opportunity if you're thinking of what to do for next year in this realm. So we host our trainings on what IDPs are for our employees in January, and then have everybody submit their IDPs by mid-February. And their individual development plans run from February till the end of the year in December. So we're looking at kind of what does it look like? What do you want to work on and develop for yourself in this year? We just recently have moved our IDPs into our HCM system, our human capital management system. However, prior to last year, we just did these on a piece of paper. So it doesn't have to be fancy, guys. I mean, you can really don't need to make something grandeur or wild. It can truly just be a piece of paper. And that's what we used. And it worked great for us for a long time. So what the basics are in our individual development plans, it kind of covers where are you now? Where do you want to go? What are some of your career goals? So what are your short-term goals? 1 to 2 years, what do you want that to look like? And even longer, looking out maybe 3 to 5 years, what does that look like as well? There's a self-assessment section in there as well. So what are your strengths? What do you feel are maybe your opportunities for growth? And then there's also a section in there for the leader assessment. So from your leader's perspective, what are your strengths and what are your opportunities for growth? All of these pieces can kind of get put together in building any employee's individual development plan. So we can look at potential areas of strength, potential opportunities. Do we need to maybe feed more into those strengths? Or maybe do you want to focus on your opportunities? We kind of look at all of these different areas as we therefore move into the creation of your goal setting. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of SMART goals before. So we really try to deep dive into making what our short-term goals, long-term goals are, your strengths and opportunities into actual SMART goals. What is specific is we need to make sure our goals are measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Because as cool as it is to say, I want to get better in Excel, that's just so big and broad. Like you can't possibly know if at the end of the year, if you're better at Excel or not without writing really specific goals that help you kind of tie and hold your feet to the fire to make sure that those goals are happening. We like to include on our individual development plans a combination of both soft and hard skills. So not only just technical based things. What can you as a person improve on? What do you want to work on from a behavioral challenge? It's important to help feed into our employees on both sides of things because they want to develop themselves and they really love that when we're invested in them on a personal standpoint as well. For example, one of my goals that I'm working on this year is that no is not a dirty word. So you're allowed to say no for the people out here who are rescuers and love to say yes, 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 and sign up for everything. That it's not a bad thing every once in a while to say no. So kind of encouraging our employees with different things that maybe they might need a little bit of assistance on. So both of our employees and our managers sign off on each of the employees in IDP. So you're making this commitment in front of your manager, you're both signing off on it. And when you're doing that, and that's the goals that you're setting, you have a lot more of an opportunity to actually be successful in your goals by writing it down and committing, and someone else is holding you accountable too. Ooh, that one always helps you kind of make sure you gotta really make sure you're signing up for what you want to work on. Now, in order to make sure that our employees are actually progressing on the goals that they've signed up for, what we do is we include our IDP reviews in each of our quarterly reviews. So once a quarter, your manager is going to be sitting and asking you, how are you doing on this goal that you signed up for? How are you making progress? Those time-bound commitments that you made with your SMART goal, are we hitting them along the way? So making sure that you've got that accountability partner. We want our IDPs to be conversations with managers. And so that's why your managers are holding conversations with the employees. That's why they're doing that leadership assessment. That's why the manager is signing off on it as well, is to make sure that it's truly something that the employee knows. The manager is also committed to them developing and growing and improving themselves. And also a great opportunity for our managers to say, oh, I didn't know you were interested in that. Well, I've got a great book for you to read on that. Or, hey, have you reached out to this department? It looks like you're working on some skills. This person might be really knowledgeable and be able to help you over here. So they're trying to be that bridge to kind of help them connect the dots of where they want to go and provide them some additional resources as well. To make sure that our employees and our managers are ready for those discussions, we host some trainings for them in January. So we do an employee-based one of what this form looks like, how to complete it, how to get prepared for your meeting with your manager. And then from a manager standpoint, we host a training with our managers and supervisors of how to help your employees really deep dive their goals into being more SMART goals. How to maybe potentially challenge if they are they have goals that are maybe not attainable. They want to be the CEO of our organization in 1 year. All right, how do we have that conversation to help them? All right, let's take little steps first. Let's baby step this one in order to get to that goal and help them identify where they might potentially need to improve. So that's one of the really cool things that we do here from an employee development standpoint. Yeah, Hamza, did I miss anything?
No, that was perfect. Thank you so much, Missy. And there was a question, if you're maybe able to share the plan. So if there's maybe a template, or if we could see a sample of that, we can use it and share it in the follow-up resources. So we'd love to see a sample if you're willing to share.
I would love to share that with you guys, and it'll be the super cool Word version. So paper version for us to just roll out and use.
That's perfect. I love that simplicity. Perfect. Hey, Doug, welcome.
Hello. Yeah, hi, everyone. I'm Doug Keeker, and I am one of the co-founders at Vivaic. We're a business-to-business organization. We develop training programs for other organizations, custom programs, usually on technical topics, such as like onboarding for specific functional groups within an organization, or new product rollouts to provide training around that across the organization. And such. We've been in business since 2006, and so this is 16, just turned over 16 years in this craft. Yeah, yes, some days. We have 68 people, and we've been virtual since the very beginning, before COVID required it of everyone. So we have 68 team members all across the United States, and in France and Japan as well. And so a few years ago, in terms of employee development and team development, a few years ago, one of the big challenges we were facing as an organization is we were entirely, when we were small, and when I say small, I would say up to about 30 some people, we were very much organized around accounts and projects. And so the teams would all work, we would have people kind of assigned to different accounts, and then within those account teams, then they would be assigned to different projects. Well, that's fine and well until you have an account that doesn't do so well 1 year, and or you need somebody to be able to come from one account team and work with another account team, because then we've got like different people doing things very differently, but we're all doing the same kind of work. An instructor-led training is an instructor-led training, but it's going to be, the way or the approach that we were taking with each account was really not scalable or sustainable. One of the other big challenges that we were having is we had a lot of really talented team members who showed interest in taking on leadership roles. And in that account and project based structure, one of the challenges was, and this was totally inadvertent, we had no idea that this was really, that this was just an unintended consequence, but really the only way to advance in the organization was to become a project owner and then eventually become an account manager. And that really, what happened is we'd have people who loved the design aspect, thinking about how to get people to learn best, who went on to be a project owner and then an account manager because they were really amazing at what they did, but they hated it and we burnt them out very quickly. So there was really everyone only really saw one path to taking on more roles or more leadership. So our COO at the time, about I want to say 5 years ago now, she did a lot of work in interviewing team members and really kind of digging into some of the challenges we were facing with that burnout problem and such, and also the desire to develop And one of the results of that was we moved to reorganizing ourselves into a more of a matrix-based organization. And so we are organized into functions, and each function has some part of the development process of what we do for each account. So we have a functional team of project owners. Those are the people who love keeping things on time, in budget, and developing the detailed plans and leading a team of people. We have a team of learning analysts who love the upfront interaction and working with subject matter experts. And then we've got designers who love designing and developers who love developing. And then we've got account managers and who love the business development and the relationship side of things. And so what the result of that was is it really opened up an opportunity then for people to develop within the craft or the area that they really are passionate about. Now, so we moved from that utility infielder concept to really more of a specialist concept. One of the things that we didn't want to give up in the process is that we think it's important for people to be able to explore other areas that they might be interested in. So no one on the team is 100% of any one function. So you're probably going to be 60-75% project owner, but you may have a small portion that you're dedicating to being a designer, so that you can, continue to cultivate some of those other areas that you're really, passionate in. So primary and secondary roles became a kind of a part of our nomenclature in that matrix-based organization, giving you an opportunity to expand. And if you wanted to take on a new role, or you wanted to maybe think about moving into a different area of the work that we do, that opportunity is there, and you could have that conversation with your functional leader. The other piece that really was important there is we made sure that people had opportunities to advance. So we really then started focusing on, okay, so from what does it look like? What are the expectations of somebody who's brand new as a designer? What are the expectations if you've been in it for 3 to 5 years? And what would we expect of somebody who maybe, has been in it 5+ years and might be ready to mentor people? So really creating more advancement opportunities within the function as well. Some of the things that we've done over time to support this and make sure that people have kind of those really rich, meaningful development opportunities. One of the first and probably most important pieces that we really worked on as a team, and we're in the process of revising them right now, are competencies. So our functional competencies. So really thinking about and getting a documented list. And this came not from myself and my business partner and our leadership team, but from within the function. They started documenting, okay, what are the things that project owners need to know and be able to do really, really well? And then started kind of the process of leveling those and saying, okay, these would be the baseline expectations if you're coming in and you're managing a project for the first time, and here's some things that you might want to advance to in the future. So competencies was a really important supporting piece. And based upon those competencies, then we have built onboarding around those competencies within each function, as well as, and we call those our learning designer academies or what have you. And so each function has an academy. And in some cases, you might attend multiple, we might be attending a session, not just with learning designers, but also with project owners, because the topic might be something that cuts across, or a competency might be something that cuts across multiple functions. And so we have our team of functional leaders. There's 5 individuals who lead each of the functions, and they work really hard to make sure that there is that continuity in the development programs in the academies, so that we're pulling project owners, designers, and developers together at exactly the right time so that they can learn together and speak the same language. Beyond that, one of the other most important tools I think that we've really worked to develop are on the job training plans. And so Our on-the-job training plans, basically what we do is you get an introduction to all the competencies through the academies and the onboarding that happens, and then the additional kind of professional development that happens throughout the year within each function. But each function also then has a list of on-the-job activities. And so a project owner, an example might be creating a detailed project plan. And an on-the-job activity, the sequence goes: first you shadow, then you reflect, then you try it out yourself, and then you get some feedback after you've tried it out from a mentor who's also, let's say, a project owner. And so it's really kind of choose by choice. So if I'm a new project owner and I've not developed a detailed project plan before, or maybe I've not developed one in the same format that we typically will use at Viveac, then I might say, hey, I'm going to tackle that. And so the individual really chooses which on-the-job training pieces are going to be most important to them after they have a chance to after they have a chance to get a sense of what the rhythm of projects are like through some of the initial onboarding and such. But those on-the-job training experiences, everybody has, it's simple as well, like Missy was talking about. It's a simple Word document, just a table. It's nothing fancy, but it basically takes the competencies and it lists them out, and then it gives you a little checkbox. So if you've done the shadowing on that, then you mark that off, and it's just makes it a way to track, like, what have I done and what am I working toward? And it also gives those functional leaders then an opportunity to see, because they have biweekly touch points with team members, not only about what are you resourced on and how are you feeling about work and such, but also about, okay, what have you been doing in terms of working towards your goals or your on-the-job training experience and such. I'm happy to share a copy of that. And then as far as the question about competencies within our performance management cycle, I'd say that our performance management cycle is probably is honestly the next piece that we need to put in place. So we have, I would say we don't have like a typical performance management process like a lot of organizations, where there's a performance review and then you get your performance review results, and you might self-evaluate that on your own. Our philosophy has always been, everyone should take, should have that kind of hunger and desire to continue to grow and develop in their own way. As we've grown, we've learned that we probably need to have more system in place there, but we're always cautious of putting system in place. It's very slow. Before we put a system in place, it's going to take a while. It may be a little bit painful for a little bit, just because we're not going to put a process in place because we think that process is going to solve it. So I know that's a non-answer, but we don't have a specific performance employee management review process right now. But competencies are the discussions that we're having, they are going to be the foundation of what we are going to be doing. And right now we're going to be taking it at a team or a functional level, where our first step is going to be set a functional goal. So fewer slippages in timelines, so timelines not getting pushed out in a project. That's going to become a functional goal. And as a team, they're going to be working on that together to try to work toward some of that. So less at an individual level, more at that collective level, but eventually we want to get it down to then, okay, what are you doing that's helping move the needle? And we've been looking at some of the resources from Great Game of Business and some of those other tools that are out there to really help us kind of think about, okay, and challenge our thinking on how can we get that driven down to the individual level without it feeling forced or contrived. So.
Can I share a few thoughts on both? So I would just say to Missy, instead of thinking about having to say no to things, I like to think about preserving my yeses. It just feels a little more positive and kind of resonates. And I would just say to Doug, so we actually are the same. We don't have a formal performance review process. I actually historically came from organizations that were much more structured in that way. But what I would say is the reason is not that we don't want to hold people accountable. We do. But if you, our feeling is that if you have a proper performance review, it's almost like you're delivering a verdict instead of having this sort of like co-created ongoing conversation about feedback and development and how do people grow and, you know, what are the larger opportunities and where are there, you know, ways that we could be working more collectively together. You know, so it doesn't mean we shouldn't be having real-time conversations or that we should be saving up information. If we're not having conversations often enough, then people have no idea where they stand. And if you really believe that feedback is a gift and gives you, you know, a way to point your arrow, then you have to be brave and have those conversations, even when they're sometimes, you know, awkward or not the ones you want to have. But you know, but I would say that, and then I would also just say my colleague Bruni's on. And, you know, one of the things, Bruni runs our distribution center and our operations. And one of the things we've done similarly is to really look at making sure that every function within our distribution center has multiple people who can do it, but that every member of our distribution center has multiple functions that they can be proud to say they're versatile, so that you do have, you know, job growth, that you do have skill variety, that you don't get dusty, and that if, you know, you need that either additional set of hands or the redundancy in order to be prepared for, you know, larger work, that we're able to do that. And similarly, you know, on our sales team, and some of my colleagues are on the phone for that, you know, we've found the same thing, that, you know, just because you're an outstanding sales consultant and you may actually have other things that you'd like to be able to do. And so having that ability to have some variety, maybe to help with training or with product development, it really keeps you sort of fresh. And it also gives you empathy for other things that people are responsible for.
Yes.
And then you sometimes have a better sense of being able to do your job, because you know either what steps came before your tasks or what steps came after. And you get to see more whole picture, and it's more satisfying.
Mm-hmm. And that's such a great point. We have really pushed, instead of a performance management process, we've pushed for feedback at the project level, because that amongst the project team members, that's really where meaningful feedback can actually happen, is because that's where people are actually doing the work together. And so that exchange of feedback throughout the project is really important. And then also at that, you know, with your functional lead and you know, as well. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys so much. That was really wonderful. I appreciate the different perspectives. And to those who have submitted questions, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Annie, and I know she's got a list of them too, so we can address them as well.
Yeah, great. This has been wonderful so far. And again, if you have questions, feel free to either pop them in the chat or use the raise your hand button in the Zoom feature. So whatever you're more comfortable with. I know, so Jennifer asked a little bit ago, and this is for Missy, do you have a skill set library that employees use to choose from to help them prepare their IDP? Do you use this in place of annual performance reviews? And I think this is a really important one for like a lot of programs like this. How do you get buy-in for the IDPs?
Yes, I saw the question after I stopped talking. So kudos for Doug for eyes on both things. Man, that's a skill. Going on my IDP, just kidding. So from a skill set library, when it comes to a technical standpoint, we do something similar to Doug, where like we review competencies. Ours is called a skills assessment. So our employees are actually skilled based where they're at on their competencies. So they're able from a technical standpoint to see where they need improvement. When it comes to like a soft skill type thing, that's really the world is your oyster. So we don't necessarily have a specific, like here are some soft skills library, but it can be whatever that you as an individual want to work on, whatever you feel that you need to improve on. Let's see. Do we use this in place of annual performance reviews? No, we're on the flip side of Jen and Doug. We actually host 4 performance reviews in a year. So lots of opportunity for that feedback and I know it's probably more than the average bear if people do have a performance reviews. We do it 4 times. And with those IDP check-ins, those are included in every single one of those performance reviews as well. And how do we get buy-in? So great question. So this learning mentality and the desire for growth is started from like a cultural thing. For Pegasus, that's part of being brought into the organization is to have that learner mentality. So we're screening people on the very, very front side that want to continually work and develop themselves. It's also pushed from our top down. Our leaders are really into development and constantly talking about the need of their own IDPs and what behaviors they're working on, and being open about that to help us know that it's not just we're picking on everybody below and saying, y'all need to get better. No, we're all working on and trying to improve ourselves. They are mandatory too. We make it a requirement for people, but we want them to understand the reason why we're making this mandatory is because we want to have that mentality of continually developing and improving ourselves. And that's just part of who we are as a culture.
Great. Thank you, Missy. And I think
course.
that's a great reminder too, that while all 3 of you can have slightly different processes and people can take away lots of great takeaways, but it all has to fit within your company's culture. So just a lot of adapting. So here's a question that came in from the registrations, and this is for all 3 of you. So whoever wants to chip in for this, go ahead. Can you please discuss overcoming the inertia of implementing initiatives around training and development? And how do you kind of get past that day-to-day busyness to really get these programs going?
I would just say, one of the biggest pieces is going to always come down to prioritization. So, we talk a lot about the idea of Stephen Covey's like quadrants, like, what's more about working on the business rather than just working in the business, and like what are things that if we do the right things now, they don't become fire drills later. So for us, if we believe that putting in place an emphasis on employee development, in whatever facet it is, on a career development program or on nurturing talent, if we believe that that's one of those like high value activities that will actually help us to if we plant seeds now, then we'll bear fruit later, then that becomes a big priority. And then we need to make sure that we're having, to the earlier question, buy-in from others, and that we're doing all the right things to communicate, to plan, to set milestones, and then take it from there. But I think inertia is really the right word. It's hard to be able to jumpstart something and then make sure that you not only start it, but that you execute it really well and thoughtfully with consistency. And then you go back to it and sort of fine tune, course correct what went well and where can we keep improving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel fortunate that I think it's because it's been part of our culture since the very beginning. It's just been part of our DNA since the beginning. It's also part of, it is what we do, as an organization. And so we don't really experience the inertia of, starting employee development. I'd say what we've had to really work through is spending too much time on employee, because it can start to really chip into time to productive time as well. And there's lots of great ideas. Our team gets extremely excited about learning, lunch and learns, and are eager to learn and share from each other. And so we've really had to think creatively about, how do we make sure that we, for instance, during our quarterly team meetings, we really set aside, because we're already bringing everybody together for 2.5 days. So we make a very big chunk of that about learning and development together. So it's basically thinking about, okay, what are some of those times and time frames that we already have on the calendar so that we're not adding additional things to the calendar, and really making those, very much focused on employee development and sharing and learning from each other, as opposed to making it another thing that you need to try to squeeze in addition to all the projects and the work that you need to be doing on a day-to-day basis. So.
And I would say for us, what's helped us be successful with embracing change, because you guys are right, it's hard. People don't really want to sometimes, is to really explain the why behind the change. What are we doing and why are we making this adjustment? It's not just for kicks to change it up on y'all. It's really the benefit of what we're doing and why we're moving in this new direction. So I'm helping them understand the reasoning behind it, helps them get on board so we can all start rowing in that same direction versus somebody going backwards because they're like, ooh, I'm not sure about this one. So how can we make sure that we can get them on board to move forward? And then very similar to what Jen said, focusing on those quadrants. All right, well, where are you spending your time? Where can we help you out? We actually use a lot of those firefighting type style topics in our lunch and learns. So things like time management, emails, like handling your avalanche of emails that we get every day. So utilizing those for lunch and learns, so we can help our employees get better in some of those areas, which opens up some more opportunities for them to be a little bit more proactive.
Great, thank you all. Great. Another question that came from the registration is, are there certain levels of employees that you prioritize more than others for employee development opportunities, like managers, entry level, anything like that? Or do you really cater it to the level of employee?
I would say, no, we don't really differentiate in terms of levels. Everyone, there's an equal focus. I will say, one of the things that now that we're, 5 years into this, and we now have, a lot of our initial onboarding and those kind of deeper dive academies into each of the functions, we are actually now starting to think about, what are the level 2 academies and some of those topics. So for example, project owners, we've noticed a need to help give them a specific training on giving feedback and, to team members, because they're often worried about, stepping on somebody's toes or, what have you. And so we're really working on thinking about, what's the next kind of level of training that's needed within each of those functions, rather than, not than just the baseline.
For our organization right now, we've got a ton of different training programs for all different levels, but it didn't always start that way. So with our IDPs, that's for everybody in the organization, from warehouse workers all the way to our executives. Everybody is completing an IDP. When it comes to other development and training programs, we've got a ton of them that target specific levels. It didn't start that way though. We identified where was the need for, where could we have the biggest splash first, started there, work and develop and build a program out that's right there. And then where is the next biggest impact that we can have? And with time, we've now grown to have a lot of different programs, but it didn't start that way. So don't feel discouraged. You can start even from one small little step.
And I would say, I think it's interesting what Missy said earlier, which is, it starts at the interview phase. So we really, when we commit to bringing somebody into the Clear Vision family, we really are very thoughtful about making sure that they do have a curiosity in their nature, that they are learning minded, that they're somebody who want to continue to grow and contribute and be engaged. And so for us, I think learning means different things, and we really do think about learning at all levels. At different points in time, I think the emphasis may go to slightly different places depending on, where we see the need presenting. There's definitely been a lot of leadership development that's been taking place over the last probably at least 3 or 4 years, because we realized that when we invest in leadership, then they invest in their team, and then it just sort of begets more greatness. But I would say leadership means a lot of different things, and it's not always about directing people. Sometimes it's about, people who are emerging in their personal leadership, or they're, emerging in different ways. So I really do believe that it goes back to that concept of change management, people who are flexible and agile in their thinking, they want to keep adapting, they want to keep innovating and trying new things, and maybe disrupting a bit what already exists. So if you have that wiring in you, that sort of fiber in your being, then you're going to be more attuned to it, and then whatever we give you can almost seem to be like a learning opportunity.
Great, thank you so much. And I know we have a little bit of conversation going on in the chat for anybody to take a look at too. And then I just want to ask, because I know this is always a big question for programming, and you guys all kind of touched on this in little ways, but what are some ways that you track ORI that you maybe haven't mentioned already, and how you measure success for these programs?
I'll
Go ahead,
just,
Doug.
okay. I'll be short. We get feedback and we do evaluation, to after each of the sessions, and get feedback, but it is still very much limited to that reaction and such, and anecdotal feedback, check-ins with your functional leaders, and sharing of that, in terms of being able to demonstrate a specific ROI. That we're not there yet, and I'm not sure what that would look like just yet, but it's definitely something we've thought about.
For us, it's what drives us really with those, making sure that they're SMART goals. Can we truly see at the end of the year what the measurables were from it? So that's why we take the time on the front side to really train and write our goals correctly. So by the end of the year, we're able to kind of see that growth, see that development on there. When it comes to things like our skills assessment, we're able to see a progression based on, are they advancing? They were at 2 before, now they're at 3, kind of that movement up from numbers on that path. So that's what we do in order to kind of help. And also it's a little subjective as well from a manager perspective of how are they integrating with these performance reviews? Are they doing well? Are they looking for new opportunities, and kind of some of the other kind of qualities that you want to see with your employees?
And I would just say, I think it always comes down to, what are the messaging elements that you're sending to the company. So one of the things we say often is what gets measured gets done. And, if you inspect what you expect, then then you'll be happy with the outcome. And so I think it's about how you frame what you're looking for the result to be. So we're not super formal per se and necessarily measuring a specific ROI, but if our goal in doing training and development is for skill building, then what is the goal that we set up for the skill to attain? If we train everybody in a certain team in SolidWorks, which is a 3D printing software, do they obtain mastery? Then, yay team, we achieved our goal. If our goal in doing certain development activities is career fulfillment or employee retention, then, we do certain employee surveys. And if we attain a recognition as the best company to work, then, then we attained our goal, and we have, low turnover. So I think it sometimes comes down to, there may not be a specific ROI, but it is about, what are you measuring, and do you feel like you're reaching that goal? And I would say, one other thing that we didn't per se talk about today, but I just wanted to mention, particularly from a sales perspective, we've implemented a lot more role playing and improv activities this last year. And we've implemented a lot more mentorship and what we would call masterminding, which is this idea of, really pairing people together who have certain strengths and competencies. And that bears a lot of fruit too. So I think you sometimes have to look at where are the opportunity areas, and how do we maybe do things that are a little bit less traditional? How do we, make people feel good about doing it? So there's lots of different ways to do training. It doesn't only have to be in one flavor, but then we have to think about what do we want the outcome to be.
Thank you all. Are there any other questions from the group? Anybody holding back a burning question?
We're ready if needed.
Well, I have one more I can pull from, and it's a little bit different, but I am kind of curious what you guys all have to say about this. So one question was that there's a growing conversation about horizontal co-leadership to give people a bit more rungs to climb on their journey. So what's the environment that you think is best suited for this so that there isn't disorientation about decision making?
Maybe we're not ready for this.
Well, I'm not sure. So I don't know if the person who submitted it could, but I have an idea, but I'm not sure that I'm addressing the question. So I'm not sure when you say horizontal co-leadership, like what are we? I might need a little bit more context of like what you mean there.
I believe the person who asked this initially had to leave early.
Okay.
So maybe it is more that kind of flat leadership.
Yeah.
That structure.
One thing I can just, that I can speak to is I'm not a politician, but I'll answer a question however I want. One of the things that I would say is, we have found that it's important for team members within a function. So it isn't just functional leaders that lead the onboarding or the on-the-job sessions. Team members who, and some have 3 years of experience, some have 10 years of experience, lead certain sessions as well. And so it isn't, our onboarding, our on-the-job training, we think it's extremely important. We believe very deeply that everybody is a leader in the organization, and that you can, if that's something that you're interested in, we see that as a huge development opportunity to grow leadership capacity, which has been part of, one of our strategic initiatives over the past several years, is to grow leadership capacity. And so if you raise your hand for that, we will find a way to make sure that you have an opportunity to lead sessions, mentor, and such. And we think that that's really important. And then they become a really important partner to that functional leader.
And I would just say, one of the classic responses when you ask somebody why they're interviewing, they will tell you they're looking for growth. And what I always reply to that is, growth looks different for different people. And in an organization that traditionally is not per se title driven, is more flat, it really is that growth is how you define it. So it may be leading projects, it may be having stretch assignments, it may be getting invited to certain meetings where you're, in a position of decision making. It may look like attendance at a conference or investment in you, getting trained with certain specific skills, going to, certain events. I think that for the person who's really energized and motivated to participate and to become somebody who can be hands-on and impactful, that's very satisfying, and you can almost carve out your own way of what growth looks like. But if you're really looking to go from here to here to here to here, which is not, a good or bad thing, it's just about a reflection of what's authentic to your organization, then you have to know that about yourself. And you have to know what's going to be satisfying and what's going to make you feel really great when you're at a cocktail party and you have to describe what you do for a living. And that's okay. But I think you have to really start to have that messaging at the forefront. Otherwise, somebody comes in and then, they've decided to place their career in your hands, but then they realize it may or may not be what they had anticipated growth would look like. So having those authentic conversations, being, realistic up front, then everybody sets off on the right foot, and it can be really, fantastic. And then you have just tremendous opportunity to define it and color it in whatever way makes sense for you.
Yeah, we use the term over here, leading from the side. So sometimes there's opportunities for leadership roles amongst your peers versus necessarily the title that comes with it. And what better way than to prove you're ready for a role is than to start acting and being that role that you want to move in. It's kind of like that natural progression versus I'm going to wait on the title before I start. It's not necessarily the right way to go sometimes. So having that understanding that knowledge is power as well. So in order to help yourself be set up for success, following G.I. Joe's rules and knowing that knowledge is power and learning and being curious about all the impacts that potentially your group does and potential domino effects from there is really, really useful as well. So that just natural sense of curiosity is always a good thing to push and promote to help our employees understand growth is on our way.
Great. Jen, Missy, and Doug, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and your time with us. We are super thankful. A round of Zoom applause for them. We really appreciate you all. Check back in 2023. We'll have a lot more virtual events and content. And of course, our conference. Have a wonderful and a restful holiday, everyone. Be safe, and we'll see you in 2023. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.